If you were the President of the United States, how would you stop an impending global takeover when many of the conspirators hide inside your own government? Remember, you need legally obtained evidence of actual crimes, otherwise the lamestream media will say you're a dictator and the Democrat swamp creatures will push for another bogus impeachment. We are quite literally watching a biowarfare drama play out before us, which my sources predicted would happen back in 2018. And for clarification, this individual was not a U.S. intelligence source. Rather, this came from an individual who worked for G7 security, specifically related to biological weapons, and participated in biological weapons theater that was ongoing in 2018.
The creation and intentional release of the Clade X virus.
We can't retreat from the rest of the world.
Continuity of government here cannot be overestimated.
Federal quarantine of this scale is unprecedented.
The question everywhere, when will there be a vaccine?
Bill Gates has helped to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. He announced that his project called CEPI will go to preparing for the next great epidemic.
A new way of building vaccines that could let us develop in less than a year a novel vaccine.
To understand who is behind this, let's remember that oftentimes the deep state uses cart before the horse tactics. So let's start with solutions. Who's offering them, when, why, and what are they? The name Bill Gates stands out because he seems to be the tether tying this whole scheme together. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, whose foundation has pledged billions of dollars towards manufacturing possible vaccines for the novel coronavirus. Is atheist Bill Gates a prophet, or did he have advanced knowledge of a tyrannical rollout? Anyone else find it coincidental that Dr. Fauci is on the leadership council for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? Recognize her from the coronavirus task force briefings? Dr. DEBRA BIRX, well, looky here. Her daughter, Laura BIRX, works for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Well, here's another interesting coincidence. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Health Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201.
The high-level simulation exercise for pandemic preparedness and response, hosted by Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
A high-level pandemic exercise on October 18th, 2019 in New York, New York. The Johns Hopkins Center has been the primary data source for tracking coronavirus cases. Many U.S. outlets reference them, and the Trump administration uses their data sources to make important decisions regarding the nation's welfare. So, turns out, Johns Hopkins and the World Health Organization have been padding their numbers. Wow, another coincidence.
Why in the world would they be sending you out information to fill out death certificates, whether the person's been diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, but then to say in the death certificate this person's death was caused by COVID-19? That does not sound right to me.
And so this is concerning, and it actually gets to your point, Chris. When we start talking about the data that goes into the modeling, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are we being forthright?
And let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem. The intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
So with that being said, why would they want to skew the number of deaths due to COVID-19?
Well, fear is a great way to control people. Fear is a great way to control people.
Bill Gates has become the World Health Organization's second biggest donor. Given the high production level of Event 201, which was held in last October, this had to have been planned months in advance, maybe years. AKA my source talking about biological weapons theater in 2018. So when CNN falsely claimed Pentagon sources knew about the pandemic last November, which the Director of National Intelligence had to call out as fake news, we can assume that it was the World Health Organization, the Johns Hopkins Center, and most likely the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that were CNN's sources of foreknowledge of the pandemic. Are you starting to see the big picture yet?
The high-level simulation exercise.
Speaking of advanced knowledge, Apple, Facebook, Tesla, and SEUI Bank so graciously donated their stockpiles of N95 masks to the U.S. government, in tandem with AG Barr's threats to criminally go after hoarders and market manipulators.
I want to stress that we're not talking about consumers or businesses stockpiling supplies for their own operations. We're talking about people hoarding these goods and materials on an industrial scale for the purpose of manipulating the market. But if you are sitting on a warehouse with masks, surgical masks, you will be hearing a knock on your door.
Apple had 9 million masks, Facebook 720,000, Tesla 250,000, and SEUI Bank had approximately 40 million N95 masks. Did they have advanced knowledge which allowed them to stockpile supplies, thereby creating an artificial shortage, exacerbating the pandemic? According to Cook's tweet, Apple's operations team is using its supply chain to source, procure, and donate the masks, which helps explain how Apple was able to obtain so many masks in such a short time. Yeah, sure. Sounds like Tim Cook is having a hard time making excuses for his stockpile. When you're spying on everyone, it would kind of be hard not to have advanced knowledge. Well, if quarantine blues have got you down, never fear, because Bill Gates is here with a solution. Yep, a new COVID-19 vaccine that's already entered into human testing.
The efficacy of vaccines in older people is always a huge challenge. It turns out the flu vaccine isn't that effective in elderly people. We clearly need a vaccine that works in the upper age range because they're most at risk of that. And doing that so that you amp it up so it works in older people and yet you don't have side effects. If we have, 1 in 10,000 side effects, that's, way more, 700,000, people who will suffer from that. And that actual decision of, okay, let's go and give this vaccine to the entire world, governments will have to be involved because there will be some risk and indemnification needed.
So now he admits that giving old people the flu shot was ineffective. Therefore, he wants to ramp up the COVID-19 vaccine, which could potentially cause more side effects, but he wants immunity for it. Politico named Bill Gates the world's most powerful doctor. The guy's antivirus software couldn't even keep your computer from getting a virus, and we're supposed to trust him with a coronavirus vaccine? Besides, do you really want a vaccine created by someone whose life goal is depopulating the Earth?
So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero, and that's going to be based on the number of people, the services, the energy, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look.
Even his wife Melinda is drinking his eugenics Kool-Aid.
The lady told you that she had had 8 children and 4 of them had died in childbirth or shortly thereafter. But if all of them had survived, she'd have 8 children. And what the developing world does not need is more children.
If she knows that 2 will survive into adulthood, she will naturally bring down her population. And so as soon as she starts to see that getting them vaccinated or keeping them alive during the birth, she won't have as many children. We're seeing that play out in all the population numbers across the globe. In fact, the population rates are coming down faster than had been predicted.
They're literally 2 white people walking through an Indian village talking about using vaccines to decrease the population numbers. Genocide much? Meanwhile, the malaria drug Trump mentioned, hydroxychloroquine, is a tested drug with minimal side effects that's showing promise in the treatment of the coronavirus. But hey, the Democrats just want to ban that. Let's go with Bill Gates' experimental vaccine. That's a great idea. Can't have someone offering an alternative solution to Bill Gates' death jab.
Is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better not to lay off those 10 teachers and to make that trade-off in medical costs? But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Let's just call it the death panel's no retirement plan. Guess they won't have to give back all that stolen 401k money after all. Recently, Bill Gates said large public gatherings may never return until everyone is vaccinated, all while calling for a national tracking system for coronavirus on Reddit.
We're never reopening this economy fully until we're able to GPS this virus.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded the creation of a vaccine tracking system using invisible ink that gets embedded into the skin with the vaccine that can be seen using a special smartphone camera app.
So you would inject these biomolecular tags and markers that fluoresce through the skin of the patient. There's an external detector typically that is able to pick up on those fluorescent signals. The problem is, when those markers and tags that are injected into the patient bioaccumulate, the patient might be a little nauseous, might have some headaches, and in more severe cases, cardiac arrest.
But let's not forget ID 2020, where Microsoft, aka Bill Gates' company, joined ID 2020 in January 2018 as a founding partner. Members of the Microsoft team sit on ID 2020's technical and program delivery advisory committees. The Real ID Act required all states to comply with the new ID system integrated with facial recognition and capable of biometric data storage tracking. Did you know ID for Africa 2020 is requiring their citizens to get e-certificates for vaccine verification attached to their IDs in order to travel? Not like they use third world countries to beta test what they ultimately roll out in the US or anything. Fun fact, following my ID 2020 report, President Trump announced during a coronavirus task force briefing the postponement of the October deadline for Real ID Act compliance.
I'm also announcing that we're postponing the deadline for compliance with Real ID requirements.
For more information on ID 2020 and how it relates to the establishment's long-term goals surrounding COVID-19, watch my video report linked in the description below. This smile is brought to you by Super Blue Toothpaste, only at InfoWarsStore.com. Please support my journalism directly by going to Millie Weaver on Subscribestar or go to InfoWarsStore.com. Vitamin Mineral Fusion is back in stock and 50% off. It's full of minerals and vitamins that help support the immune system, including zinc. It tastes great as well, so don't miss out on that awesome sale.
What are champions made of? Here's a man who can show you.
888-253-3139, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store. Frank! 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store. InfoWarsStore.com is simply the best. InfoWarsStore.com beats out all the rest. 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139 is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. That's InfoWarsStore.com.